and Adam Mildred to be U.S. attorneys. Both nominees are highly qualified, and I look forward to supporting them. We'll hold over the remaining nominations listed on our agenda for later consideration. Before we get to the agenda, I want to celebrate the historic peace agreement to end the war in Gaza. I commend President Trump for brokering the deal and for employing America's strength to create peace. We're voting on Thomas Albus, who's been nominated for U.S. Attorney, Eastern District, Missouri. Mr. Albus has an impressive resume, including 17 years of service as a federal prosecutor. He also served under Senator Schmidt as First Assistant Attorney General of Missouri. In those capacities, he developed a broad range of criminal and civil legal experience. Mr. Albus spent several years as circuit judge, St. Louis, Missouri, presiding over many cases in the state's busiest judicial circuit. Mr. Albus is a highly qualified nominee. Adam Mildred has been nominated to be U.S. Attorney, Northern District, Indiana. He's highly qualified as well. Mr. Mildred has been a state and federal prosecutor for nearly 3 decades. The majority of that time was spent in the Allen County and Noble County Prosecutor's Office. He also had a brief stint as a Special Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Northern District, Indiana. Mr. Mildred has handled a wide array of criminal matters and tried well over 100 cases to verdict. He'll serve the people of Indiana well. I hope my colleagues will join me in supporting these nominees. And lastly, Republican members of this committee and others affected sent letters to the Justice Department and telecommunications companies last week regarding Arctic frost. These letters were about the Biden administration secretly obtaining members' tolling data. I have other investigative activity ongoing and will update members soon. Senator Durbin.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. At our last meeting last week, 2 of my Republican colleagues defended President Trump's unlawful attempt to deploy the Texas National Guard to my home state of Illinois. I want to take a moment to respond. One colleague compared Trump's actions to President Eisenhower deploying the 101st Airborne Division to desegregate Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas in 1957. Most of my colleagues here are too young to remember the civil rights movement, but there is no comparison between Arkansas's massive resistance to desegregation and Illinois' peaceful and lawful opposition to this administration's immigration policy. Arkansas Governor Orville Faubus called up the Arkansas National Guard to block black students from entering Little Rock Central High School in defiance of the Supreme Court decision in Brown versus Board of Education. The 101st Airborne, dispatched by President Eisenhower, was deployed to ensure these students, the Little Rock Nine, as they were known, could safely attend school. They weren't tear-gassing pastors, journalists, and police officers, as the federal agents are now doing in Broadview, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago. They didn't rappel from Black Hawk helicopters in the middle of the night to swarm an apartment building, breaking down doors, rousting families out of bed, zip-tying and detaining U.S. citizens, including children, as federal agents did in Chicago's South Shore neighborhood 2 weeks ago. That is a fact. And then the senior senator from Texas compared my opposition to Texas National Guard being deployed to Illinois, to southern states defending the institution of slavery. He said, and I quote, attempting to resurrect a long-rejected idea associated with slavery in the early days of the United States, that the state and local officials can nullify federal law. The senior senator from Texas is a good lawyer. and he's well aware of how limited that comparison is. I'm not arguing that states can override federal law. I'm arguing that President Trump is violating federal law. Don't take my word for it. Judge Karen Immergut, a conservative Republican appointed to the federal bench by President Trump, blocked the deployment of the National Guard in Portland, Oregon. Listen to what she said, and I quote, and let me remind you again, a Trump appointee, quote, "This country has longstanding and foundational tradition of resistance to government overreach, especially in the form of military intrusion into civil affairs. This is a nation of constitutional law, not martial law." That's what the judge said. Or listen to Republican Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt, another conservative. And he said, quote, "Oklahomans would lose their mind if Pritzker, Governor Pritzker, in Illinois sent troops down to Oklahoma during the Biden administration." I'm sure they would have. And I'm sure at a guarded moment in a spy secret ballot, every member of this committee would agree. Here's the reality. The president's actions are about politics, not public safety. For the past 2 decades, the murder rate in red states has exceeded the murder rate in blue states. But the president is focused on Chicago, where violent crime is down dramatically. We should build on that success and work together, not undermine it. As I told the Attorney General, it is my job to ask fundamental questions about whether the federal government is following the law and Constitution. But she refused to tell me when I asked what was the legal basis for deploying the National Guard in Illinois. Instead, she launched irrelevant and false personal attacks. In more than 2 decades on this committee, I've never encountered a witness from any administration, Democrat or Republican, respond to legitimate oversight questions with personal attacks on the senators on this committee. That testimony by the Attorney General demonstrated the disdain she has for this committee and the constitutional responsibility we share to conduct oversight, regardless of the party in charge in the White House or Congress. We also need to hear from Department of Homeland Security Secretary Noem. She made time to go to Chicago for a glossy promo video, but she refuses to meet with me and Senator Duckworth. She won't respond to our oversight request and denies us access to detention facilities in the state we represent. We were there last Friday. There were demonstrators there. In the course of the day, 4 were arrested and detained. It was a quiet day. People were exercising their constitutional rights in a nonviolent fashion, as they should. When I was chair of this committee, I held a DHS oversight hearing with Secretary Mayorkas during the first year of the Biden administration. He faced tough questions from both sides of the aisle. You probably remember it. Unlike the current Attorney General, he didn't insult this committee with his responses. Mr. Chairman, we sent you a letter in June asking when Secretary Noem would appear before the committee. I hope, again, for the record, you'll make it clear that that is going to happen soon.
Senator Durbin, would you yield for a question?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
We don't
You
have
said
it
that you said the
scheduled yet,
president
but we'll-
violated federal law, and what federal law did he violate by sending National Guard troops to Chicago?
Well, the question is, what federal law did he follow to send those troops, and he couldn't produce it in the court in Oregon?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that.
It's been contested as to whether he has the authority to send in the National Guard. In the court in Oregon, I just quoted the judge. There is no basis for his doing
But
so.
you didn't say what federal law, what law he violated. Is it illegal for him to send federal officials there to enforce
There are legal
federal law?
authority. There are legal authorities for him to do it, and he hasn't been able to establish in court successfully that he's followed them.
Well, I wish if you're
fact,
going to
he
accuse
keeps
the president of violating federal law, that you could actually tell us what law you
Well,
think he
I asked the
violated.
senator from Texas, why does he keep bringing up the Insurrection Act?
Well, he hasn't asserted any right under the Insurrection
For good
Act.
reason. There is no
But this
basis.
is, to answer your point about the border, in the absence of federal law enforcement along the border, or actually when the open border policies of the Biden administration were in place, Border Patrol was overwhelmed, so Governor Abbott sent National Guard and Department of Public Safety to the border to back up the border
Of his own
Patrol,
state?
not to enforce the law, but
State,
to
Texas?
supplement their efforts so they would free them up so they could deal with the challenges that they had as a result of the being overwhelmed.
Were these border areas in your state of Texas?
Say that again?
The border areas that the governor sent the National Guard to, were they in Texas?
Yeah.
Well, that's a totally different story than we're facing in Illinois.
Okay. We, yeah, I'm, go-
Well, since I was referenced, I just would like to respond.
You want to speak to this issue, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, briefly. Well, specifically, the president has cited Title 32 authority to send the National Guard there. I can understand the sensitivity from my Democrat friend, because Democrats were on the wrong side of these issues. The Democrat governors opposed Reconstruction. The Democrat governors opposed desegregation, which I cited last week in Arkansas. And now they're on the wrong side of law opposing the protection of American citizens and law enforcement who are doing their jobs, which is to enforce federal immigration law. The president has every authority to send the National Guard to protect those ICE agents and protect federal facilities. The fact that J.B. Pritzker wants to be known as sort of the resistance right now is not an excuse to say that the president's violating federal law. He's cited federal law. He's cited Title 32 in doing his job in protecting the American people. So,
I was going, first of all, I want to respond to my ranking member that we're trying to get a meeting with Secretary Noem,
Sooner the better, Mr. Chairman.
okay? Senator Whitehouse, if you're going to speak 5 or 10 minutes, I'd like to call the roll, and then I'll call on you, but if you.
That's fine.
Is that
I just,
okay?
yeah, what I want to do is just to make a record regarding the
I'll-
substance, the procedural substance of some of the questions that I asked
We'll-
Attorney General Bondi that she just flat out refused to answer. So if you want to proceed with the votes, that's fine with me, as long as I'm recognized at the conclusion of the votes.
Thank you for your cooperation.
Yep.
On favorably reporting the nomination of Thomas Albus, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Graham.
Aye.
Mr. Cornyn.
Aye.
Mr. Lee.
Aye.
Mr. Cruz.
Aye.
Mr. Hawley.
Aye.
Mr. Tillis.
Where, oh, yes, thank you. Aye by proxy.
Mr. Kennedy. Mrs. Blackburn. Mr. Schmidt. Mrs. Britt. Mrs. Moody. Mr. Durbin.
No.
Mr. Whitehouse.
No.
Ms. Klobuchar.
No by proxy?
Mr. Coons.
No by proxy?
Mr. Blumenthal.
No.
Ms. Zerona.
No by proxy?
Mr. Booker.
No by proxy?
Mr. Padilla.
No by proxy?
Mr. Welch.
No by proxy?
Mr. Schiff.
No by proxy?
Chairman Grassley.
Aye.
On this vote, the ayes are 12, the nays are 10.
Okay. The nomination of Mr. Albus will be reported. In favorably reporting the nomination of Adam Mildred, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Graham.
Aye.
Mr. Cornyn.
Aye.
Mr. Lee.
Aye.
Mr. Cruz.
Aye.
Mr. Hawley.
Aye.
Mr. Tillis.
Aye by proxy.
Mr. Kennedy. Mrs. Blackburn. Mr. Schmidt. Mrs. Britt. Mrs. Moody. Mr. Durbin.
Yes.
No.
Mr. Whitehouse.
No.
Ms. Klobuchar.
No by proxy?
Mr. Coons.
No by proxy?
Mr. Blumenthal.
No.
Ms. Zerona.
No by proxy?
Mr. Booker.
No by proxy?
Mr. Padilla.
No by proxy?
Mr. Welch.
No by proxy?
Mr. Schiff.
No by proxy?
Chairman Grassley.
Aye.
On this vote, the ayes are 12, the nays are 10.
Adam Mildred will be reported. Now Senator Whitehouse.
Thanks very much, Chairman. There were a number of questions at the hearing to which Ms. Bondi gave no semblance of an answer. I just want to discuss two of them and where they fit into Department of Justice procedures. The first has to do with when FBI agents get cash to be able to use the cash in an investigation. There is a, as you can imagine, very considerable amount of procedure before large amounts of cash are distributed to FBI agents related to ongoing investigations. There's actually a unit called the Commercial Payments and Confidential Services Unit that oversees how those Payments are distributed when an investigation in the field sees a need for those funds. They contact the unit transfers the funds to the field office, and the FBI agents go on about their business. As you can imagine, that is all subject to regular report and regular audit. And I would also add, it's a purely administrative matter. It's follow the money. And particularly in a case like this one, Mr. Homan, the case is closed. So there's no danger to an ongoing investigation. Not only does all of that procedure lend itself to congressional oversight, but the FBI procedures explicitly state that these expenditures, and I'm quoting here, must be accurately recorded in case of a congressional audit. So if the FBI recognizes that they need to track these funds in case of congressional audit, then nobody can argue that it's impossible or improper for Congress to audit or question those funds. And of course, if $50,000 goes out of a US account and then doesn't come back, that's a worthy question as to why that money that was put out of a US account never came back. So that's the FBI procedures background, or backdrop, if you will, to the question that I asked that the Attorney General, in my view, improperly refused to answer. The other has to do with the Office of Professional Responsibility. And here's how what's called OPR within the Department of Justice works. Anybody who's got a complaint about the way in which a Department of Justice attorney has conducted themselves sends their complaint to OPR. OPR does what they call an initial review that screens out the crank calls and the meritless accusations. And if there's any there, you get through that initial review and you move on to an inquiry. They call it initiating an inquiry. And once the inquiry is initiated, then OPR goes about doing an investigation and preparing a report. So what happens with the report customarily is that a summary of the report is prepared, and that is released publicly. So I wasn't asking her for, when I asked for the summary, I wasn't asking her for anything that wasn't a matter ultimately of public record. That's how they do it. And you can understand why they do it that way, because part of the purpose of publishing OPR summaries and outcomes is to give guidance to U.S. attorneys, assistant U.S. attorneys all around the country into what the rules are and what the precedents are related to their conduct as lawyers. So it's unsurprising that those summaries are provided. More than that, OPR's own website provides that it will actually produce the investigative reports, not the summary, produce the investigative reports to Congress when properly requested. So I think it's appropriate for anyone on this committee to ask OPR, when we know of a complaint against a Department of Justice official, did it stop at initial review? Did it go on to inquiry? Were investigation steps taken? Was there a final report? Show us the public summary, and we are requesting the investigative report. That seems just completely ordinary. And for that reason, I would hope that the committee generally, knowing that this goes back and forth, would support my pursuit of actual answers to those very simple questions that the Department of Justice itself acknowledges Congress has the right to get. So thank you for letting me make that statement. I hope that clarifies what is going on here. I do not intend to give up on answering these questions just because, well, let me say, I'm married to a marine scientist. And one of our big products offshore from Rhode Island is squid. And what squid do when they feel threatened is they squirt out a jet of ink and then they zip away, leaving the little cloud of squid ink in the hope that that distracts from the squid itself. And I think we got a lot of squid ink from that chair, from the Attorney General, rather than real answers. And I think we're entitled to real answers. And in these two cases in particular, Department of Justice procedures concede that Congress is entitled to answers. So thanks for hearing me out.
Thank you. If there's no one else to speak, the meeting will be adjourned. Mr. Melderd has been a state and federal prosecutor for nearly 3 decades. The majority of that time was spent in the Allen County and Noble County Prosecutor's Office. He also had a brief stint as a special assistant U.S. attorney for the Northern District, Indiana. Mr. Melderd has handled a wide array of criminal matters and tried well over 100 cases to verdict. He'll serve the people of Indiana well. I hope my colleagues will join me in supporting these nominees. And lastly, Republican members of this committee and others affected sent letters to the Justice Department and telecommunications companies last week regarding Arctic frost. These letters were about the Biden administration secretly obtaining members' tolling data. I have other investigative activity ongoing and will update members soon. Senator Durbin.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. At our last meeting last week, 2 of my Republican colleagues defended President Trump's unlawful attempt to deploy the Texas National Guard to my home state of Illinois. I want to take a moment to respond. One colleague compared Trump's actions to President Eisenhower deploying the 101st Airborne Division to desegregate Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas in 1957. Most of my colleagues here are too young to remember the civil rights movement, but there is no comparison between Arkansas's massive resistance to desegregation and Illinois' peaceful and lawful opposition to this administration's immigration policy. Arkansas Governor Orville Faubus called up the Arkansas National Guard to block black students from entering Little Rock Central High School in defiance of the Supreme Court decision in Brown versus Board of Education. The 101st Airborne, dispatched by President Eisenhower, was deployed to ensure these students, the Little Rock Nine, as they were known, could safely attend school. They weren't tear-gassing pastors, journalists, and police officers, as the federal agents are now doing in Broadview, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago. They didn't rappel from Black Hawk helicopters in the middle of the night to swarm an apartment building, breaking down doors